announcements. The church office will be closed to the public. Lisa or myself might be in for a little bit, but we are closing the office for public, the public for you all, just out of the order from the governor to stay at home. So we'll still be available by phone. Lisa will be in the office in her usual hours, so you can reach us in those places. A couple other things, the newsletter will be coming out weekly as it has been. Look for that to happen. We are going to have we're bringing some programs online as we adjust to this, as we all adjust to this new reality. A couple of things we're going to be looking at is something for the kids over Zoom in the coming this week, next week. We're looking at doing a book study. And we're also the clergy of the Eastern Slope, so the other churches in the Valley, we are putting together a trivia competition. More to come on that. So what we'll do is we'll have a trivia competition within our church, and then whoever wins that will go on and battle the other churches. So we're trying to find ways to do this, and so we're looking forward to the trivia competition. I also want to remind you of our Wednesday night devotional and prayer time. That's every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And the details are in the email and on the Facebook page and the website. So the clock is our church clock, and chimes are just about ready, and that will on Monday, I think the finishing touches are going to be, so we'll be able to hear the bell in town if you live in town, and that will be working again. And Stu Lord has done a great job of keeping track of that project, and if you know him, he has a passion for clocks, so they've done wonderful work. As you know, the organ is in. Kathy is working on music, and we're trying to figure out new ways of bringing music to you. We will be doing communion next week, and so if you will find some bread and some juice or apple juice or some substitute, we're going to be doing that next week together over Zoom. So plan for that if you would. When I was with so just the elements that you had, because that's what Jesus used, and so I used to, like with college students, you would use orange juice and Pop-Tarts, like whatever you have on hand. But it would be important to do that together. Our Holy Week services, more will come out about that. It looks like we will be doing that over Zoom. We'll look at some different ways of doing that, but we'll definitely have a Monday, Thursday service and an Easter service. So, and we're looking, Kathy and I are working on music for that. And just a couple more things. That our committees will continue to meet. We'll continue to meet over Zoom. I know some of you are having trouble with Zoom and maybe downloading it. You can also dial in and with phone and then the ID number. So it's the broadest platform that we could use. So that's what we're doing. And I think that is it. Aaron, if you would just open the mics if anybody else has anything to add. Any announcements or questions? Okay, well, we will proceed with our service. We have a wonderful, we have the praise band. how we're doing our lives these days, all of our lives. So our praise band, Wing and a Prayer, will be doing our opening and closing music. And we have beautiful music from Nora Cronin as well. So I invite you to be a part of our worship of God this morning.
Are you hurting and broken within, overwhelmed by the weight of your sin? Jesus is calling. Have you come to the end of yourself? Do you thirst for a drink from the well? Jesus is calling. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Leave behind your regrets and mistakes. From today, there's no reason to wait. Jesus is calling. Bring your sorrows and trade them for joy. From the ashes, a new life is born. Jesus is calling. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, come to the altar. The Father's arms are open wide. Forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Jesus Christ. Oh, what a Savior! Isn't He wonderful? Sing hallelujah! Christ is risen. Bow down before Him, for He is Lord of all. Sing hallelujah! Tell the world of the treasure you found. Jesus is calling.
Please join us in our call to worship. The earth shakes, the mountains quake, tempting our hearts to fear.
God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble.
We are afraid of the unknown and the upheaval in our world.
God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble.
We worry about loved ones, that they would remain healthy.
God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble.
We are perplexed about our jobs and feel unhinged when out of work.
God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble.
When we see empty shelves, we suspect others of carrying a sickness.
God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble.
When we long for connection and we feel the walls closing in,
God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble.
God, you alone are our refuge. You alone are our strength. You alone are our courage. We look to you in these troubling times. Amen.
And now join with me in our invocation prayer. Oh God, you are our refuge and strength, and therefore we will not fear. We will, O Lord, open our hearts and minds to your courage and to your strength. We come to worship today. We are scattered throughout the world, and we long to be together in physical presence, and yet we are able to gather together here in your presence, in our homes, and are connected here throughout the many miles that separate us. We are, O Lord, we have fear in our lives. We also have moments of great joy where we can connect with our families and where we are building and reestablishing and reconnecting relationships that are so important to us. All of this is present in our lives, both the upheaval and the new things that we are discovering. And so we bring our whole selves to worship, all that we are, and we do so trusting in you and your divine guidance and in your provisions. And so, O Lord, we ask that you be a part of this service as we are connected in relationship to each other and to you. And we pray the prayer that you taught us to pray by saying, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our debts as we forgive those who have debts against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the power and the kingdom and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
You are my strength when I am weak. You are the treasure that I seek. You are my all in all. Seeking you as a precious jewel, or to give up I'd be a fool. You are my all in all. Jesus, precious Lamb of God, worthy taking my sin, my cross, my shame. Rising again, I bless your name. You are my all in all. When I fall down, you pick me up. When I am dry, you fill my cup. You are my all in all. Jesus, precious Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Oh, Jesus, precious Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, precious Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Oh, Jesus, precious Lamb of God, worthy is your name.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Nora. Thank you, Praise Band.
Beautiful.
Yeah. This is our time for us to share with one another our prayer concerns, the things that we are grateful for. Be mindful of if you have things going on in your background, that'll affect the way we can hear each other. So if you will mute that. And what are the prayers that you'd like to share with one another, the things you're thankful for?
Continued prayers for Lynn Gilman.
Amen.
Prayers for Lynn and for Alan's family. Others?
Prayers for Marie. Barney had a stroke a week ago today, and he's home. The therapist will be coming in, but it's a very stressful time for them.
Okay.
Gambinos.
So that's Barney Emery Gambino. Prayers for Barney who had a stroke, if you didn't hear.
Yes, funny.
Folks, we're all new to this, but pretty much everything you do, we hear, and you should know that. Maybe we are thankful for microwaves, are we not?
I'm thankful for Psalm 91 and sleeping with my Bible. And every time I wake up in fear, I read that right out loud. I am so thankful for that.
They hear everything we say.
No, they don't hear what we said.
Oh, yes, we can.
I'm thankful that I was able to dial up on the phone today to the service.
Oh, that's great to hear from you. Great. I'm so glad you were able to dial in.
If to call in. Yeah.
Any others?
Sean, we would ask for prayers for Kyle's family in Vermont. They have experienced the flu. Kyle has got it recently, and they could use our prayers.
Thank you. So Kyle and Katie and their family. I asked for prayers for Eli. He's been having a sore throat and running a temperature. That's about it. But if you could pray for him and for them.
Totally realize it.
I would like to just say that I had a God sighting yesterday. It was truly wonderful as I was running up High Street and down through all the Shackford fields. I saw an amazing amount of robins, and that was a sign of hope for me that spring is here. I'm very grateful for that God sighting.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask prayers for Leanne's fiance, Eric. He is by himself in Manchester, so it's very hard for him to be isolated from his family and from our family.
We're happy to be with you all this morning from New York. It's really great to see everybody again.
Welcome.
My friend Sherry is on here from Elmira, New York. So that's a blessing.
Hi, Sherry.
Hi.
Yeah, it's both of those things, right? Where we're in, some of us are experiencing isolation, and we're also able to connect in new ways and see people that we haven't seen. So I'm grateful for both of those things. Well, not the isolation, but.
I'm grateful for hearing the birds. It's just, yeah, I noticed it like a couple of weeks ago, and my cat really loves it, but it's great to hear the birds.
Yes, Kathy.
Yeah, it really is fun to see all the birds. We have a bunch of robins at our house and bluebirds, and one hilarious thing that's been happening. We have one super aggressive robin who is trying to keep all the other birds from eating the mealworms, and he every morning when the sun hits at a certain spot, he sees his reflection in the window and just keeps bashing into it. It's funny. You can see he hit so hard yesterday that you can see his impression in the glass, the wings. And the,
yeah.
But
bird.
it's fun to watch, and just to see nature waking up is great.
I'm asking for prayers for my children. I have them in Seattle. They're military. The Air Force just got shut down for non-essential. They are all to shelter in place. They don't have any supplies. And my other son in the military, who is also shelter in place in Florida, they don't have much food down there. And I have my other son in Louisiana, who is also very high risk. And I have my other family in North Dakota, who my son is getting tested just as a precaution because he's the head of a big crew. He has no symptoms whatsoever, but it's just a precaution. And of course, my daughter is having a hard time here. She's home with us, and she's, social distancing for anyone, at that age group has been trying. And pray for strength for everyone in these times to just be so thankful for everything we have.
Yes.
Sean, I'm asking for prayers for my daughter-in-law. She is currently going through some chemo, so it puts her at a very high risk.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Gail.
Come on.
Apple keeps popping up, but I don't hear them saying anything.
Unless she's next to the microphone, any little sound out of her mouth gets caught.
Okay, we'll bring our prayer time to a close. And thank you all for sharing, and we'll be remembering each other in our prayers.
We're muted.
Have mercy on me, my God. Have mercy on me. For in you I take refuge. I will take refuge in the shadow of your wings until the disaster has passed. I cry out to God Most High, to God who vindicates me. He sends from heaven and saves me, rebuking those who hotly pursue me. God sends forth his love and his faithfulness.
Almighty and everlasting God, you are strength to those who suffer and comfort to those who grieve. Let our prayers of trouble rise to you. We claim your promises of wholeness as we pray for those of us who are ill or who are suffering loss and long for your healing touch. Make the weak strong, the sick healthy, the broken whole, and confirm and protect those who serve and care for them as agents of your love. To those of us in distress, grant mercy, grant relief, grant refreshment. As we walk through these troubling times, we commend our neighbors to your care. Give us strength of purpose and concern for others, that we may create a community where your will may be done. God of compassion, you watch our ways and weave out of terrible happenings wonders of goodness and grace. Surround us throughout this world who have been shaken by tragedy. Surround us with a sense of your present love and hold us in faith. Though we may be lost in grief, may we find you and be comforted. We pray this in Jesus Christ, who was dead but lives and rules in this world with you. Amen.
Amen.
And so now Debbie is going to read our scripture for this morning.
Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was ready a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. And then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. And then those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God."
That passage of scripture is so rich, and what I think we are going through at this time. I don't know about you, like we've got this time that we haven't had, right? And we're looking for ways to spend the time. And I don't know if you are, but I'm like constantly watching the news each day, and and particularly disturbing are the pictures from Spain and Italy, and often in the news we hear about shortages and what is being done and what isn't being done. And I keep trying to comfort myself and say, okay, everything is going to be all right. And yet, I don't know about you, but I hear, when I hear the news, like my chest gets like a little tightened up, right? And my muscles tense up and my breathing becomes shallow. And it just puts me on edge. And because I have this, well, sort of free time, right? Or different time, I'm looking at the news and I'm checking it, and it gets to be a little much. And I don't know about you, but maybe you, like I have, you've kind of caught the what if disease. I don't know if you know the what if disease, right? It kind of goes along with this whole virus. It's like what if disease, and it's kind of spreading, and it's like, what if there isn't enough? What if my children get sick? What if I get sick? Over and over and over again. What if, what if? And there's so much unknown to us all that just kind of grows, right? The what ifs are just outnumber so much of what we focus on or want to focus on. And I think that's it. Like we have this time, and what are we dwelling on, and what are we doing with this time, and what are we consciously choosing? And with this, like the what ifs and the fear, I wonder about courage. And so that's what I want us to think about today is courage. What is courage? And in this passage, I hear courage. And so I want us to think about courage. In order to do that, we also have to talk about fear, which is what I opened with. And it's interesting because fear is not the opposite of courage. In many ways, fear is a companion of courage. There's a children's book. It's entitled "The Frowny Face Clown," and in that book, there's a quote that I really like. It says this: "The monster is only scary while it is in the closet. Once in the light, you can see its many flaws and its weakness. And often we end up laughing at what we shield our eyes from no more." Now, I don't know about you, but we're not probably quite laughing at this stage. I mean, we make jokes about toilet paper and things like that. And yet there is that sense of the monster in the closet. And the monster that we are facing is still kind of in the closet. We just don't know. And at this time, it's important, I think, to talk about the fear. And in talking about our fears and talk about the courageous steps forward with our fears. Because in talking about our fears, fears shrink. The monster in the closet becomes smaller. And we can tap into our collective courage. I think we're tapping into our collective fear quite well. But what about our collective courage? And so what is courage? Roy Bennett wrote that courage is feeling fear, not getting rid of fear. Knowing something is more important than fear and taking action in the face of fear. So let me say that again. So courage is feeling fear, not getting rid of fear. It's also knowing something is more important than fear and taking action in the face of fear. So that courage calls us, it recognizes that fear is there, but then it calls us forward to taking action even when we're afraid. Even when we're afraid, we take action. And that action calls us forth. It's bigger than the fear. And so the gospel story we heard today is really very appropriate. The context is like Jesus has fed the 5,000. And he goes to the mountain to pray and sends the disciples out in a boat across the Sea of Galilee. And they go out in the dead of night. And so you can imagine, in 2,000 years ago, going out in the dead of night in the boat on the Sea of Galilee in a small boat with 12 or more people could in and of itself be frightening. I mean, they were fishermen, and so they perhaps knew, but the dark has this ability to make every little sound magnified in our mind, tricks in our mind. And so they go out in the boat, the disciples, and a storm comes up and the winds and the waves threaten to sink the boat. That full small boat threatens to capsize it. And the wind was against them as they tried to make their way across the Sea of Galilee. It was dark. And I'm sure the waves seemed bigger than they were. I'm sure that it was bigger and scarier than they could have imagined. For them, not being able to see, not being able to know, it was like the monster in the closet. And the disciples were afraid. We see that, we hear that in the story, that they were afraid. And then Jesus, in this miracle, somehow comes walking across the water, and we're told shortly before dawn, before the sun comes up. Now, I don't know about you, but when I have stayed up, and particularly when I've stayed up when I'm worried, that time when you've made it through the night and there is that moment where you just don't think the light is going to come. You just don't think that twilight is going to be possible. You just don't think that the sun is ever going to rise. That to me was at the moment that they were at, the disciples were at, wind and waves and fear for their lives. And at that darkest, deepest moment, Jesus comes walking on the water. Well, their reaction was even more fear. They were afraid because they thought he was a ghost. At this time, they thought that the apparition was walking across the water, and Jesus says to them, like many of the interactions between God and humanity, he says to them, "Take courage. It is I, don't be afraid." Now, we only get Peter's response. I'm thinking the rest of the disciples are like freaking out even more, because not only is this ghost, but this ghost is talking to us, and it seems like Jesus maybe. Only Peter steps up and says, Conditionally, I might add, if it is you, tell me to walk to you, Jesus. If it is you, I'm not sure, but if it is you, tell me to walk to you. And Jesus says, come and walk to me. Peter is still, at this point, afraid, just like all the rest of the disciples. Fear is with him, and he steps out of the boat. And he steps out of the boat with his eyes focused on Jesus, focused on faith, grounded in faith. Scared, worried, fearful, grounded in faith. And we read that he gets out of the boat and miraculously, again, walking on water. And then we have this pivotal moment, right? Where he is focused on Jesus, focused on faith, and he sees the wind, we're told, and he was afraid, and he began to sink, and he cries out, Lord, save me. And Jesus catches him by the hand and saves him. And there's something here in this moment to me where Peter stepped out in courage, and his focus shifted from his faith to what was going on around him. And I think this is a part of it, right? Are we focusing on our fear? Or are we focusing are we focusing on our faith? Now, it's not an either or. It's just like, where are we putting our focus? Because the fear is still there. The fear was still there for Peter. And yet his focus shifted. And so I'm calling me to courage with fear. Courage to step out and recognizing our fear. I found this beautiful quote from Oprah Winfrey about courage. This is what she said. The true meaning of courage is to be afraid and then, with your knees knocking and your heart racing, to step out anyway. Even when that step makes sense to nobody but you. I know that's not easy, but making a bold move is the only way to truly advance toward the grandest vision that God has for you. And so that relationship between fear and courage, the true meaning of courage is to be afraid and then, with your knees knocking and your heart racing, to step out anyway. To step out anyway. Yes, we are afraid. And God is with us. Yes, there is uncertainty, and God is with us. Yes, there is scarcity, and God is with us. Yes, there is a storm, and God is with us. Yes, we are being called to walk on water, to step out of the boat, to do the opposite of what we want to do, which is to stay hunkered down in the boat. What if we stepped out of the boat and knew that God is with us? I think it's time for us to walk with our fears, carry them with us and acknowledge them, and step out of the boat into faith. It is time. It is our time. And it is, the courage is to be afraid and with our knees knocking, to step out anyway. Step out of the boat that we are in, the boat of fear. Step out of the boat. It's time for us to step out of the boat. Trust God and step out of the boat. And I don't know what that is for you, but it's time for that move. Peter took that courageous step in his time and in his place. And I believe that we have been created for such a time as this moment in time. This moment in time, we have been created for this moment in time to step up into our courage. To recognize that there is something more important than fear that is calling us. There's something grander, there's a bigger vision for us that is more important than fear, and for us to step out of the boat. It is time, I believe, for us to be courageous in our families, to be courageous in our community, to be courageous in our world, to courageously know the gifts that God has given us and live those out, to be courageous and make a difference, to be courageous and make a difference with our vulnerable, powerful, life-altering, self-affirming courage. To be vulnerable and to be powerful in our courage. And to do the thing that God has uniquely called you to do and uniquely called you to be in this time and in this place. For the sake of God's love and grace, for the sake of you, for the sake of the world, for the sake of your family. Let us acknowledge our fears and step out in courage.
Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow. All your ways are good. All your ways are sure. I will trust in you alone. Higher than my sight, high above my life. I will trust in you alone. In you alone. Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow you. You love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. In this life I lose, I will follow you. I will follow you. Light unto the world, light unto my life. I will live for you alone. You're the one I seek, knowing I will find. All I need is you alone, is you alone. Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow you. You love, I'll love. How you serve, I'll serve. If this life I lose, I will follow you. I will follow you. In you there's life everlasting. In you there's freedom for my soul. In you there's joy
Our benediction today is from a poem by John O'Donohue entitled, it's the end part of a poem entitled by John O'Donohue, A Morning Offering. May my mind come alive today to the invisible geography that invites me to new frontiers, to break the dead shell of yesterdays, to risk being disturbed and changed. May I have the courage today to live the life that I would live, to postpone my dream no longer, but to do at last what I came here for, and waste my heart on fear no more. I go in the peace of Christ. Amen. So